Hey Soul Center, Danny here for Mondays in April. This is installment number 4. This is our last installment of looking at the concept of parts of self and self-compassion and connecting with your authentic self. So today in our final session we're going to look at pulling all of that together, and it's called the practice of healing. And what I'm looking at, I'll show you in just, let's see if I can do this. I'll show you. This is a form that I am going to actually be posting. Oh, you get a little snapshot of my dog over there. I'm going to be posting this here in the Soul Center. As soon as I'm done with this, I will go to my computer and post this in the documents, and so you can actually get a copy of what it is that we're going to talk about today. So, quick summary: the first 3 weeks. So we talked on week 1 about understanding your parts of self, and so that is that idea of knowing who's on your bus, who's in charge, who hijacked you, when do you get hijacked. So it's really about becoming aware and becoming conscious of who is in charge of your behaviors and your actions at any given point in time. And to do that, you need to connect with that authentic self or that observer self to be able to have some of that separation. So we talked about that on week 1. Week 2, we talked about self-compassion. And self-compassion is the gentle, nurturing energy that we offer to our parts of self. So once we identify some parts that are in the driver's seat, what does it look like to build a relationship with them, to offer them self-compassion so that they will relax and not hijack us all the time? That's the ultimate goal. I know, easier said than done, right? And then last week with my friend Laura Neff, when I was in Charlotte, we talked about the authentic self. And so that is the concept of, for true healing to take place, what happens is, sorry, there's bugs out here in Arizona. Thought I got away from that when I left North Carolina. The healing takes place when you're connected to your authentic self. And that's when last week we talked about using your body to identify when you're in that place, when you're in that calm, compassionate, connected, centered, confident place. And if you missed that, if you look at last week's Facebook Live, I described an exercise that you can do to help you connect to your body, to find that authentic place. And then that authentic self has a conversation with the part. And that's what we want to talk about today, is what does that actually look like? And so I'm hoping that with this handout that you can go download in the documents here in the Soul Center, it's actually a 6-step process. And I'm just going to quickly walk through it, and then you can obviously read through it on your own. But literally what you're imagining, if you think about parts of self and who's on your bus, you're imagining taking a part of you and maybe sitting it on a couch next to you, right? And so you've got your authentic self, right, that you've learned how to connect with. That in and of itself can be a practice. And then you've got the part that is needing attention in that moment. Okay, it could be a part that's hijacked you. It could just be an emotion that you're feeling. It could just be something that you're wanting to heal and just getting to know yourself better. So you're literally imagining 2 parts of you having a conversation. So the first step in the practice of healing is to connect with your authentic self. This is a practice. This is something I recommend you do not when you're hijacked. It's almost impossible, like physiologically, for your brain to connect to your authentic self if you're actually triggered. But if you build a practice of connecting with your authentic self, that's the first step, is to find that connection, find that centered, calm place. The second step is to identify the part that's wanting attention. So who is it that is either doing or not doing the behavior that you're wanting to either stop or start? And it's just noticing that person. And here's the thing: you have to be. This is step number 3. It's the check-in. You have to ask yourself, how do I feel towards that part? If you're feeling critical, if you're feeling annoyed, if you're feeling like, oh, I wish this person would get off my bus, you are not in your authentic self. Because the very nature of the authentic self is compassionate and curious and caring, right? I mean, there's more to it than that, but when you think about actually working with a part, if you feel compassionate, if you feel curious, especially if you have a part that has done something that's really pissed you off, or you really aren't proud of, or you don't love, can you get curious about what was going on versus judgmental? Okay, so that's that third step, is to check in. Here's the thing: if you are not feeling anything but curious, go back to step 1, which is to connect with your authentic self. When you do get to the point where you're feeling curious, then you can move on to step 4, which is, this might sound weird. I know this sounds weird to people, but it's to actually have a conversation with yourself. And so what you're doing is your authentic self, the observer, is having, I'm pointing to I have a couch over here in my backyard, so that authentic self is actually having a conversation with the part, with questions to be curious about. And on this handout that I'm going to give you, I actually have several questions that you can ask, but you can also come up with your own. Just like if you were sitting with a friend in a coffee shop that you really maybe didn't know that well, what would it be to be curious about them? What would you ask? What would you want to know about them? And so you have that conversation, and then the fifth step is to offer care and presence. And this is using language like, I'm understanding this is what you're feeling, or I appreciate this thing about you, or just offering that gentle, nurturing energy of, that must be really hard, or you don't necessarily have to say that, but if you're just imagining like what it would be like if you had a child who is sad or upset, how would you be with that child? Not fix it. Remember, we talked in one of our sessions about this is not about fixing or doing anything, but just being with. And so you're having a conversation. Your steps 4 and 5 is have a conversation and offer care. And you're just going back and forth. Have a conversation, offer care. Have a conversation, offer care. And then point 6 I have, it's not really a step, but just to always be mindful of when your critic jumps in. You may actually be having, and this happens a lot, there may actually be a dialogue happening between 3 people. Right? You've got your authentic self, you've got the part you're trying to talk to, and you've got your critic that keeps wanting to jump in, keeps wanting to nudge themselves into that conversation. If that critic becomes too powerful, you can simply shift the conversation so that your authentic self is having a conversation with the critic. Okay, now that, I'm sure that makes sense logically. That can be harder to do, only because sometimes our critic is so much a part of us that we can have a hard time getting separation. So in this practice of healing, if walking through these 6 steps, if that's something that is feeling like a struggle or feeling difficult, my recommendation would be just focus on step 1, right? Focus on step 1, which is just practicing that connection with your authentic self. The more you can feel that connection, it's connection with the authentic self and separation from the parts, the more you'll then be able to go on to steps 2 through 6, which is, just to reiterate, connect to your authentic self is step 1. Identify the part that's wanting attention is step 2. Oh, sorry, I guess I shouldn't do these outside anymore, these little teeny bugs. Step 3 is to check in and ask yourself, how am I feeling towards the part? If it's critical or anything negative, you go back to step 1. If you're feeling curious and open, you go to step 4, which is to have a conversation and ask the part some questions. Just get to know it. Step 5 is to offer care and compassion to that part. And then step 6, again, not really a step, but always checking in about, am I feeling open? Am I feeling open? Am I feeling open? So that is a quick primer on the practice of healing. I understand, like when I've taught this before, I know that most people get it, like it makes logical sense, but putting it into practice can be a little more challenging. So I just want to throw that out there as a way of, be gentle with yourself. One thing that can help is to write it out. Actually write a dialogue, like as if you're writing a script for a play. What would it be like to have your authentic self talking to your part? What is that part going to say? And it really is cool. A number of people that I've worked with have been really surprised because they're a little skeptical, like, this part's going to talk to me? But yeah, because remember, your parts are a part of you. They're part of your unconscious. So you're not necessarily aware of what they're holding. You become aware of their behaviors when you don't like it, but you're not aware of what they're holding for you. So when you actually start to try to have a conversation with them and start to get to know them, what is unconscious can often come into consciousness. So that part may actually reveal something to you, may tell you something that may surprise you. But it's all a part of you and all a part of your story, but now you know yourself a little bit more. It can have a little more self-understanding, self-compassion. So that's the idea. Now, this is the last Facebook Live I'm doing in terms of Mondays in April. I may come back on for some other stuff. But for this, what I want to say is later, if this stuff, oh gosh, sorry about the bugs. If this series has been of interest to you and you'd like to dive deeper into it, there's two different things that we can do. One is I'm actually going to put together a telecourse, probably a 6-week telecourse. So rather than these, 4 10-minute Facebook Live sessions, we'll actually do 6 group, probably 90-minute group sessions. I haven't figured out the format yet. We'll either do it on webinar or just via voice. I'm not sure what that is, but it'll be a little more interactive. So if you have questions, you can ask. And obviously the teachings will go a little deeper. We'll give you homework in between so that you can actually deepen your understanding of this process and learn to build self-compassion for yourself. So that will be coming later on in the summer. If you follow me on Facebook, or if you're going to be active in this group, I'll certainly be posting about it so you'll know the dates and how that's going to work. But I do encourage you to get on my email list if you're not already, and that way when I'll send out blog posts about it, you can be sure that you'll get it in your email inbox. And if you're not on that list, if you just go to my website, which I'll actually post in the notes here, but it's DannyWFake.com. It's just DannyWFake. There's a box on the right hand side of the home page where you can put in your email and name. And actually that has a guided imagery. If you put in your email, you're supposed to, I'm having technical difficulties, I'm trying to work this out, I'm hoping to get it worked out by tomorrow. But when you sign up, you should be getting a guided imagery to meet your authentic self. So if you remember what we talked about last week, about connecting with that authentic self, this is actually guided imagery where you can just sit back, relax, and listen to me walking you through a process. Not a process, it's just an imagery of you visualizing your authentic self. So if you sign up on my website, you'll get that once the tech issue is worked out. If you sign up on my website and you don't get it, please let me know, either here or send me a private message, because I can send you the audio separate. So please let me know if you don't get the audio. That also puts you on my blog list. So anytime I write a blog, you'll get it in your inbox. And when I post information about the class I'm going to do later this summer on these concepts of parts of self and self-compassion, you'll have access to that as well. And then the second way is if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, I also offer a couple of things. I offer just monthly packages if you just want to deepen your understanding of this for you personally. But I also offer 6-month programs called Personal Awakening, and you can find all of this information on my website. But the Personal Awakening it's a little bit more guided. It's 6 journey points. So we just, in each of those 6 months, 1 month focuses on a particular journey point. And it's all around this concept, but it really is about deepening your education as well as your application of working with parts of self and using self-compassion to heal those parts of you that are hijacking you so you're doing things you don't want to do. So if you're finding yourself, stuck in grief, or feeling like you're unfulfilled in your life, or having frustrating relationships, starting to manage those internal parts of self can help with that. So the Personal Awakening 6-month program is just a little more personal focused, obviously, because it's one-on-one. So those are a couple of options: class later on this summer, or Personal Awakening, which would be available now. So if you have any questions about anything that we have talked about over these past 4 weeks, please let's start a dialogue here in the Soul Center. I'd love to hear how this is impacting you, what you're thinking, if it's mattering at all. My sense is it's got to have questions, right? People have to have questions about this, so I would love to answer them for you. So I'll put my website in the link here, and I will post this little worksheet that you can work through. And let me know what questions you have, and hope you have a fabulous rest of your Monday. Bye.